things off with Donna Corby. Donna, your line is live. All right, still having audio issues. We'll go to Steve June.
Corey, thank you for the time today. I know you fought a lot of legends in your career already, names like Glover Teixeira and Shogun Rua. So how do you compare getting this chance to fight No Mercy Melvin Manhoef?
I mean, it's just another fight to me, you know. As for Shogun, fighting Shogun, that was one the legend, the name of the legend kind of like struck me going into the fight, especially I think it was like my 8th pro fight, 8th or 9th, you know, to think, oh, I'm fighting Shogun already. So that was kind of like a shocker for me. And I had that, I don't know, say drum, what you call that, that respect of him being one of the legends I actually looked up to in the sport, you know. But as for Glover, I didn't really look at him as much of a legend because I didn't really follow him until I got into the UFC. And same with Melvin, you know, I'd never really seen any of Melvin's fights until they told me that's who I was fighting. So as for looking at him as a legend, I can't take away what he's done in the sport. He's definitely beat some of the guys, and he's a legend in the combat sport. But that legendary factor doesn't register in my mind because he wasn't a person I actually watched growing up.
Fair enough. And knowing this is your Bellator debut, and you obviously had some issues, shall we say, in your previous promotion, how do you feel now? How much more comfortable are you, and how does that improve things going into the fight for you?
I mean, I feel free. You know, I've talked to my wife, I talked to my coaches about it. To me, it's like I'm starting all over. It feels like my very first fight ever. Just the pressure isn't really, none of that pressure, none of the extra burdens on your back. You don't have the president over here talking trash about you. You don't have the commentators and everything saying negative things or saying good things. You got to try to impress somebody. You don't have to worry about making a needle move to get a title fight like they told me there and stuff like that. I'm here to fight. And I feel if I win, I move forward, you know, and that's the reason why I got in the sport of martial arts in the first place. You know, I grew up watching Matt Hughes, training with Matt Hughes in college, and he was the champ at the time. He used to tell us all the time, you know, fighting and wrestling is similar. You beat the guy in front of you, you move forward. You work hard and you earn that position. That's all you gotta do. You go out there and you beat the person in front of you and you move forward. There's nothing else to it. And that was like one of the reasons why I got into the sport, thinking like, okay, if I just beat these guys, I move forward. And then when it got to the point where things started to change, it wasn't about beating the guy and moving forward. It was more about, are you selling tickets? Are you a fan favorite? How much money are you going to make us? Okay, how many followers do you have? Is people talking about you on social media right now? And then they kind of realized it took the love of the sport away from me. As far I wasn't going out there to fight just to win anymore. I started going out there to fight to win the fans over and to promote myself and get a big enough following so they would finally give me the title fight. And now that I don't have that baggage and that stress anymore, I just feel free. Like I can go back to just doing what Corey Anderson does and just perform to dominate my way, get the win, get my hand raised, get 2 checks, and go home.
All right. We look forward to seeing that on Thursday. Glad to hear you're so happy now. Thank you.
Gabriel?
Hey, Corey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. I mean, to follow up on that a little bit, I just wonder, you know, being in a new promotion, you're still fighting MMA. Can you relate the feeling for people who don't experience it? Do you feel like you're going into a new job, or, you know, is it the same thing, just different people?
It's the same thing, just different people. You know, after I signed with Bellator, a lot of the interviews were saying, like, oh, what do you see different here? Like, why is it that you left Bellator or UFC to go to Bellator? You know, Dana White is saying, oh, you can compete better over there, this and that. And like I told him, it's the same risk, but with a higher reward now. You know, in UFC, they didn't value me. When we asked for more money, they just shut it down. As for Bellator, their first offer was just a big amount of money compared to what the UFC wanted to pay me, which made me realize, okay, this company sees my worth. So why would I risk getting hurt for a company that doesn't see that and not going to pay me anything when I can go get paid my worth and make some money for the same risk, where if I can end up in the hospital, I can end up with a broken arm, a leg, brain damage, whatever it is, but at the end of the day, at least I got paid for what I'm doing. You know, I got paid for the job I signed up for instead of getting paid for just being another number to go out there and cockfight.
All right, we'll go to Garrett.
Good evening, Corey from London. Gareth A. Davis calling. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself, Garrett? Love the accent.
Thank you very much, Corey. I wanted to ask, first of all, does a victory over Melvin Manhoef, do you think for you propel you into title realm?
I'm not really thinking about that. I think that was a problem I had in the UFC. After every fight or before every fight, I was telling myself, I win this one, this fashion, this and that. They got to give me a title fight. You know, I've been on a winning streak. I'm ranked in the top. And at the end against Jon, I feel like that was part of the thing. And that's why I went out there and fought the way I did. I didn't go out there and fight the way Corey does. I went out there and fought the way Jon tries to fight. And I paid the ultimate cost because I was worried about if I go out here and dominate this guy and his style and beat him in a certain way, I get a title fight next. And Jon Jones was there. There's no way to go around it. He said my name, blah, blah, blah. And as for this camp, I haven't even thought about when I get a title fight. I haven't thought about what this fight would do to me next fight at a time. If we got to fight 2 fights, 3 fights, 4 fights, or 1 fight, either way, it'll be worth it because we're getting paid our actual worth. We're getting paid for these fights. That's my job to fight. Am I saying I don't want to get to the title as fast as possible? No, but is the title like the main focus right now? At this moment, Melvin Manhoef is the main focus. Go out there and get a win with him. After that, we talk to Sky, we talk to Mike, and we'll see what they say. If they wanted me to fight another one, fine. If I fight the winner of whoever fights for the belt next, fine. If I jump whoever and fight for the belt next, I'm ready for it. But either way, my job, I sign a contract and go out there and perform.
Obviously, you've talked about the, just now in the previous question about how obviously financially it benefited you and you could see the advantages of that and maybe things weren't going your way in the UFC. But did the strength of the division attract you as well?
I mean, some of the biggest decisions had nothing to do with like the people in the organization and the division. It was more about self-worth, setting myself up financially, me and my family financially. The way I put it is I was in the UFC for 7 years. And when people think that, like, wow, you're a professional fighter, you're a UFC fighter, you got lots of money. If you look at my bank account, you look like I'm just on a regional fight scene. I've got 7 years fight on a regional fight scene because the risk wasn't worth the reward. You know, the things I was doing, the money I was making there was not worth the people I was beating. And now I look back and they releasing people's pay, and I see there's guys that's been in the UFC 1 or 2 years that was making more than me already. And it was kind of like a slap in the face. Like, it took me so long to realize how much I was actually worth before I asked for it. And that was kind of a big thing. You know, the hardest part for me to sign that new contract was the fact that since I got in the fight game, since I got in the UFC within 3 fights I was in the UFC, the mindset was always to be the UFC champion, UFC champion, UFC champion. Those 3 words are engraved in your head. And when you go to sleep, when you wake up, when you're training, all you're thinking is UFC. So it's hard for me to think when I signed this contract that I won't be fighting for the UFC belt. But other than that, everything else made sense to go to Bellator. But the only thing that I struggled with was those 3 words that was engraved in my head. Then there's the division here. There's less 205ers here, I think. But the 205ers here can go, I feel, not all of them, but a lot of them can go compete with maybe not the champions, but some of the top guys. But then you take Nemkov, Bader, Phil Davis, Bill Machida, the guys who are already performing at those top levels, and you put them back over there, and you already know they can perform in the top. So either way, I was going to fight tough people, but it was just about figuring out which one was worth going to fight the top people. Which one are you going to get paid the more for to fight the top people? Why risk getting knocked out or hurt for a little chump change where you can go get paid and actually be able to live a life and take care of your family?
Final little question from me before Danny moves me on. Melvin Manhoef is a legend in our sport. Is he arguably the biggest name you've ever fought?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest name I fought was Shogun Rua or Glover Teixeira. You know, Melvin has definitely done his thing. He's beat some of the best in the world, and he's been in a lot of promotions. But I just feel like his name isn't as well known in the fight industry as those two, Shogun and Glover. You know, those Jon Jones, you know, who is